From the Gray Man Briefing, this is a summary of recent developments regarding the Second Amendment, cybersecurity, protests, supply chain disruptions, national security, law and order, free speech, censorship, government oversight, and more. For your situational awareness, Super Essie will be reading out the latest update. Get briefs sent in real time at graymanbriefing.com. That's gray with an A. Let's get started.
All right, let's begin with the national security, global conflict, and terrorism category. On June 5th, a male attacker opened fire at the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon. Security forces and the U.S. Embassy security team returned fire, arresting the attacker, who was wearing ISIS insignia. One member of the host country's security forces was seriously injured. The attack lasted approximately 30 minutes, with the attacker positioned in a nearby parking lot with a rifle. Following President Biden's authorization for Ukraine to use U.S. weapons inside Russian territory, the Russian deputy foreign minister warned of potential fatal consequences. President Putin suggested the possible use of nuclear weapons if actions threaten Russia's sovereignty and their territorial integrity. He indicated that Russia might soon deploy conventional missiles capable of striking the U.S. and its allies in retaliation for Western nations sending Ukraine weapons. The Cuban Revolutionary Armed Forces announced the temporary deployment of Russian forces to Cuba on June 12th, including naval ships such as the missile frigate Admiral Gorshkov and the nuclear submarine Kazan. The U.S. intelligence community assessed that the fleet poses no direct threat to the U.S. or our national security. Leading up to Russia's fleet arrival, U.S. forces shadowed the fleet through international waters by air and sea. We also saw reports of Russian testing missile systems by firing at mock targets some 300 miles away during their movement south. Moving on, the Department of Homeland Security, along with the FBI and ICE, confirmed the arrest of 8 Tajikistan nationals with suspected ties to ISIS in a coordinated sting operation across Los Angeles, New York, and Philadelphia. These arrests followed an ISIS threat to the Cricket World Cup match in New York last week. Moving on to civil unrest. From June 14 to June 16 in Detroit, Michigan, a conservative event, the People's Convention, will take place. It's promoted by Turning Point USA. Featured speakers include former President Trump, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Matt Gaetz, Steve Bannon, and other personalities. It's likely to attract protesters. Pro-Palestinian groups in the U.S. continue to call for increased escalation and violence as a means to call for peace in Gaza. Activists vandalized various sites, including a Starbucks in Minneapolis and military recruitment centers in both Philadelphia and North Carolina. In New York City, over 2,000 pro-Palestinian protesters trespassed into the Brooklyn Museum. They rallied inside and outside and on the roof of the building. At NYU, pro-Palestinians vandalized and disabled law enforcement vehicles. Looking back now a couple of weeks, near the courthouse where the Trump trial was taking place, an anti-Trump activist entered a pro-Trump rally, leading to a physical altercation. Police escorted the counter-protester away. On the day of Trump's conviction, 4,000 protesters, both pro-Trump and anti-Trump, gathered. Trump supporters also rallied outside the Trump Tower, where they unfurled a law and order flag on the streets, and police arrested them for blocking traffic. Moving on, still in New York City, over 1,000 illegal immigrants and their supporters marched, calling for the abolishment of ICE, that's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Separately, unaffiliated activists opposed to genocide in the Congo vandalized an Apple store in the city. Pro-Palestinian protesters blocked an LGBT pride parade in Philadelphia, holding flags that read "No Pride in Genocide." Multiple physical altercations ensued. In California, videos showed armed FBI agents marching in the West Hollywood Pride Parade while wearing pride flags and FBI attire with rainbow coloring. The FBI had earlier warned of potential targeting of LGBT events by extremists. Pro-Palestinians set up encampments in an office building housing the Israeli consulate in San Francisco. This led to 50 arrests after they refused to disperse. Pro-Palestinians associated with Shutdown D.C. and the Answer Coalition marched outside the mayor's office and vandalized statues and buildings around the White House. They wore Hamas attire. They held up a fake decapitated head of Biden. They used commercial fireworks and smoke. They assaulted law enforcement. They threw rocks at law enforcement. They formed a human chain around the White House. Moving on June 6th, Trump held a rally at a Turning Point Action Town Hall event in at the Dream City Church in Phoenix, Arizona. Also, the Gray Man Briefing put out some information on a series of direct actions organized by the Escalate Network. This is Escalate for Gaza, beginning on July 1st with potential riots, sabotage, and one possible false flag operation that could be blamed on Hamas. An action is also planned at the DNC in August, should be August 19th. They're in Chicago. There are countless pro-Palestinian protests underway. They're all mostly involving some form of violence or at least property damage. Make sure you monitor local news, remain aware of potential protests, avoid hotspots, follow local law enforcement guidance. Remember that the Gray Man Briefing can't cover all these occurrences of civil unrest, and we definitely can't do it here on the broadcast. If you want more details, analysis, and sources on any of these protests or actions, join at thegraymanbriefing.com. Let's look now at current events. Alex Jones has requested a judge allow him to convert his bankruptcy to a Chapter 7 liquidation in order to sell InfoWars and other assets to pay a $1.5 billion settlement to Sandy Hook plaintiffs. Separately, Steve Bannon has been ordered by a federal judge to report to prison by July 1st, following a contempt of Congress charge for failing to testify about the events of January 6th. Okay, let's take a quick look here at communications. Regarding AT&T and Verizon service disruptions at the beginning of the month of June, which we did cover this in the last broadcast, but here's an update for you. The disruptions were resolved after persisting for approximately 6 hours. The event prevented calls between the two carriers, but it supposedly did not affect 911 calls within the same carrier, text, or data services. At the same time, we saw reports from 15 or more states reporting 911 disruptions, but the two carriers deny any relation. There's been no official announcement regarding the calls. Now let's look at the economy. BlackRock and Citadel are backing the launch of a new national stock exchange in Texas, challenging the dominance of the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. Headquartered in Austin, this exchange aims to provide a competitive alternative to traditional financial hubs, leveraging advanced technology and streamlined regulations to attract companies and investors. Moving on to political unrest and some additional current events. The Georgia Court of Appeals has ordered a stay on all proceedings in the Fulton County District Attorney's case against former President Trump and co-defendants for RICO violations related to his challenging of the 2020 election results. The stay will remain in place while appeals are processed and reviews are considered on the removal of DA Fani Willis. If Willis is disqualified for financial misconduct, it's unlikely the case will even continue. The U.S. House Oversight, Judiciary, and Ways and Means Committees have sent criminal referrals to the DOJ recommending Hunter Biden and James Biden be charged with making false statements to Congress about key aspects of the impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. These allegations implicate the president's knowledge and role in his family's influence peddling schemes, appearing as a calculated effort to shield him from the impeachment inquiry. Also, Hunter Biden has been found guilty on all 3 counts related to his 2018 criminal purchase of a Cobra Colt .38 handgun, including making false statements and possession of a firearm by an unlawful user of controlled substances. He also faces separate tax evasion charges. And if things go very badly, he could get up to 25 years in prison. Most analysts don't project anything near that, if prison time even comes with this. So we shall see. The administration of the New York City Police Department is expected to revoke former President Trump's concealed carry license following his conviction. His license was first suspended in April of 2023, and at that time he surrendered his firearms or transferred them out of state. If Trump retains possession of at least one firearm he's supposed to have right now in Florida, following that revocation, he could face additional charges for possession of a firearm by a felon, which carries a minimum mandatory sentence of 3 years in prison. All right, let's shift into government oversight. During congressional testimony on January 3rd of this year, Dr. Fauci admitted there was no scientific reasoning for recommending children under 5 to wear masks in school or to social distance. He attributed these recommendations to the CDC. Additionally, communications revealed attempts by the NIAID, along with EcoHealth Alliance and government officials, as they attempted to circumvent FOIA requests. These are Freedom of Information Act requests, in order to conceal COVID-19 overreach and findings. And if you have a few minutes, you might want to go to the Gray Man briefing and check out their sources on this one. Pretty crazy stuff at the amount of effort they were putting into trying to conceal their conversations, so that if they were subjected to a Freedom of Information request, they wouldn't have to provide what they were saying. Like, they're using all sort of back channels, and the briefing has a document, so definitely check it out. All right, next one up, we have a legal update for you. In California, lawmakers introduced a bill in January to mandate new vehicles be installed with speed governors that limit the vehicle speed to 10 miles per hour above the legal limit. The mandate is included within the Speeding and Fatality Emergency Reduction on California Streets package. SB 961 has just passed the state Senate and requires 50% of new vehicles manufactured or sold in California to have these passive speed limiters installed by 2029, and that increases to 100% of new vehicles by 2032. Continuing on, let's move into the Second Amendment. The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals will hear oral arguments challenging the Biden administration's ATF pistol brace rule, which took effect on June 1st of 2023. The rule made it illegal to possess unregistered pistols with attached stabilizing braces, with violations punishable by up to 10 years in prison. The case has moved back to the appeals court, bringing it one step closer to the U.S. Supreme Court. Finally today, let's end with the law and order category. The Akron Police Department's SWAT unit discovered they had been sold and were wearing counterfeit body armor plates made in China. The Department of Homeland Security is investigating that incident. Chicago Police Department officers will work additional overtime hours and have their scheduled days off canceled amid a summer crime wave. The mayor of Chicago cited historic trends of violence during the summer months as the reason. An NYPD sergeant was sentenced to 6 months in prison for a misdemeanor assault after he attempted to intervene in a sexual harassment incident at a bar. The officer claimed his arrest was retribution for exposing corruption. New York City plans to build a $225 million public safety academy on the NYPD's Academy campus to centralize training for various city enforcement agencies. Anti-police activists are referring to the training facility as the new Cop City. The same ongoing protests and direct actions that have been happening in Atlanta, Georgia at their Cop City are expected to be replicated in New York to oppose this new facility. That's it for this week's summary of recent developments. Remember that these briefings are delivered in real time to Gray Man Briefing subscribers sent via the Telegram and Signal apps. The briefings are also sent weekly via email. Due to time constraints and the risk of censorship, we can't cover it all here. But thanks for listening. Please feel free to comment and leave any questions regarding these developments. Remain aware, be vigilant, and stay safe.
Get unredacted, real-time briefings sent via email and through the Telegram and Signal apps by joining the Gray Man Briefing.